Elden Ring Nightreign, the latest new addition to the Soulsborne series from the beloved From Software, was revealed not too long ago at the Game Awards. Recently, I got to play 5 hours of Nightreign as a part of the network test, and I have thoughts about this based on what I played, which I can only imagine is a piece of a more significant whole. Nightreign positions itself as something new and bold that is focused more on a co-op PvE environment that evolves and changes, with mechanics that we'll discuss further in this video. But the big thing that I feel for many will be, in many ways, how this is a departure from many of the key elements that make a FromSoft Souls-like tick in the more traditional sense. Nightreign feels like an experience with the trappings of the existing formula, but it's light in its form of how it executes it, weaving together these ideas into a new overarching mode that pulls some ideas from more recent trends in different games and makes a melding pot of what I would describe as a really interesting new concept that has the chops to really go far if they land it well. But now let's get into this video with all my thoughts and impressions, because there's a lot to go over here and there's a lot of interesting little things to discuss. So without further ado, here are my thoughts about Elden Ring Nightreign. So firstly, I would like to describe how this new mode works based on my experience with the test. You'll set out on an expedition, which will take place over 3 days in-game, where on the 3rd day it will culminate in you and your party of 3 facing off against a particular boss, who is the figurehead of this expedition. Before you set out, each player will be asked to select one of 4 characters called Nightfarers that will represent a different playstyle, with the Wilder being your more melee DPS class, the Guardian being a support tank class who utilizes wind damage, the Duchess, who is your glass cannon nimble DPS class, and lastly, the Recluse, who is your mage class and magic dealer. Each one of these classes comes with an ability that provides a sense of kit and an ultimate that helps turn the tides or get an advantage in combat. The Wilder, for example, has a grappling hook as an ability, which is mad and allows you to get the high ground and get to different positions or pull yourself towards enemies. And the Guardian has an ultimate that lets you soar up in the air and drop down on enemies or allies. It's interesting and really does have different compositions that do come into play, which I'll get a bit more into. Once each party member has selected their class, the party will be thrown into their first day of the expedition. You'll drop into a particular location. From here, you'll start looking around, getting your bearings, and looking for enemies to fight. But the main goal you'll have is to increase your health, stamina, and FP respectively, which can be done through Sites of Grace and having different runes that you acquire from defeating enemies to do so, just like in regular Elden Ring. However, Nightreign removes the build crafting sense of like focusing on dexterity, strength builds, or intellect builds, things like this that you would have in Elden Ring, and trying to prioritize those individual more stat sheet kind of features with having a more overall upgrade system that increases those more broader stats like health, stamina, and things of that nature. And there is a lot here to really kind of pick up, and I think that Elden Ring Nightreign, whilst not being so stat driven, is more focused around completing activities on the map and then being able to wield better gear and items and have things of that nature to increase your progress through each particular run, which is where the roguelike elements of this game really come into play. You'll, through repetition and many playthroughs, map out various locations on this map that can span from mini dungeons, world bosses, enemy camps, and many other hallmarks that underpinned Elden Ring's open world. And here in Nightreign, you will see many of them, but they operate differently. They operate much more in a light sense. The dungeons, for example, in terms of their size, are much smaller than the ones in Elden Ring, and the intention is given to work because you are working within a timer, and this is all intentional. The bosses also are a bit more tight in the ways you fight them, because the way that they are designed is, you have more people, more manpower, and they're not meant to be this long, tumultuous battle that you're supposed to go through, because, like I said, you're working on a timer. Because as night sets in Nightreign, so too does the rain. And with that, Nightreign borrows one of the staple features of the Battle Royale, with its encroaching dome that slowly engulfs the map outside of its circle, pushing the party further and further into the middle, or getting swept away and dying in the process. It means that you have to play smart about what bosses, dungeons, and camps you are going to tackle. And it isn't just a question of raw power, but also a question of time, and this added dimension to the overall experience that makes exploring on each expedition feel tense. When the dome eventually reaches the center point, you'll be faced with your first major boss, which caps off the night, and with their defeat it will usher in the second day, allowing you to freely explore the whole map of Limveld again and continue your progress, leveling up and acquiring new gear, abilities, facing bosses, all that fun stuff. Thing is, this will change once you reach the end of the second night, however. You'll clear that second boss and then your party will be transported to a different location that you traverse to, and it will pit you against the main boss that you commence this whole operation to face, and in defeating that boss you will have completed and beaten this said expedition, and you will get many different rewards that do permanent upgrades to your respective class. The completion will reward you with gems, which are color-coded to coordinate with different slots that perform benefits to your character class, helping make subsequent runs in Limveld much easier. There are many other little quirks and changes to the overall loop of Nightreign which works surprisingly well here too. Death in Nightreign doesn't permanently remove you from the fun, but it does remove levels from your character, putting you on the back foot, meaning you have to grind and level up and fight a bit more to be prepared for the next boss when day falls. Another way that is really interesting and different here that I think is quite cool and genius in a sense is how you revive your teammates, which is through hitting them enough, which helps them get back up. This makes for an interesting and impromptu ways of reviving your teammates when you're in a bind. I was on one run and the Guardian would use his ult to soar up in the air and dive on me and the other player to revive us. And it's this type of creative thinking that I feel like we're only really scratching the surface here with the systems and mechanics that Nightreign provides, and that door is open for so much unique experimentation that I feel like we will see tons of when the full game releases. Now I want to talk about what my key takeaways are on Elden Ring Nightreign from the time that I had with the game, and overall I felt like this experience was a satisfying one. Very different for sure, but I do think that I had a lot of fun playing it. The different classes all felt very distinct in their playstyle and what they bring to the table for a particular run. And there is an early sense of team composition and the playstyles here. They all feel like fans of FromSoft and the Soulsborne genre will like this, and there will be so many different types of little things that they'll find and dissect that can properly utilize the character's builds and things to strive for and look for. But I do feel like it's very different in terms of its fundamental DNA from what defines the Souls-like experience prior. Like, yes, the combat and boss encounters feel similar in their presentation and feeling, and yes, the world looks and feels like you are exploring a world similar to that of the Lands Between in its size and structure of design, but it ultimately feels like the length of these dungeons are a lot more smaller and compact, and the boss encounters are much tighter, but also shorter given the manpower you have that can help you tackle the said bosses that you face. I think if you're looking for the depth of build crafting that a Soulsborne game offers with weapons, skills, spells, armor, and having that stat sheet reflect a particular proficiency, then Nightreign foundationally is a different kind of experience. But if you're looking for an experience that is in motion, still does require you to read, memorize enemy movesets and patterns, learn the map and what types of rewards are given to you from which particular bosses, what rewards or experiences can be gathered from a particular cave, dungeon or map, then I do think you'll have a lot of fun here with Nightreign. I don't think that the elements of build crafting have essentially been removed, but I think that they've been reshaped and repackaged in it to facilitate a different style of experience that falls into this category of being a pseudo roguelike. Another thing that I found really great about Nightreign was how the rewards economy worked and the different types of rewards you'd get for defeating a particular enemy. It can take form in tons of different ways where you'll get different reward drops through like items, weapons, and weapons of different rarity tiers as well that can be more useful later on in the game. Another reason why you need to be a respective level to actually be able to wield it. But on top of that, you get different perks, spells, and abilities as well, along with things that can upgrade things like your FP and health and things like that. It also really does feel like it falls into that mantra of repeating and failing as well, and through each loop, I mean, Nightreign will feel very foreign to you at first when you drop on that map, but through repetition and failing, you will get better and really be able to better understand it. And it's crazy because I guess the best way I feel I can describe Nightreign is that the core functions of this game are different from the more traditional elements that define the genre, but it sustains the mantra and sense of experimentation, learning through failure, and overcoming challenges that at first seem impossible. But to close off my main point here, I do feel like there is a ton of variety in weapons, items, and things that are very rewarding, that I do feel that there is a great breadth and depth of variety to, that makes the player experimentation and the build crafting take shape in a different form, and albeit a much lighter form to the more RPG lens focus of the Soulsborne series, but I think here with Nightrain, it is something that really works. Another thing that I found with this game is there is matchmaking, and then there is also a code that you can get and you can send to your friends and play. I played match made with randoms throughout my whole time with this game, and I have to say that almost every time we were able to work together and head in a particular direction. There was no vocal communication or anything. We just played and it worked. It was crazy. I do think that the game does require and is better experienced through communication, so getting in queue with your pals and partying up will absolutely be the designed and intended way that I think will produce the best player experience and outcome here. And I imagine that later on in the game, there will be a lot more crazier forms of expeditions that will absolutely require this. But I feel that the biggest questions that I have that revolve around Elden Ring and Nightreign is, well, more to that what I just said. How does this formula evolve over time? The map is fantastic to explore, and no doubt players will become quickly acquainted with the best routes and spots to farm, but I wonder how this map will evolve over time with different expeditions. I'm curious if we'll be introduced to different maps, if the day duration or the locations and landmarks will change with different expeditions to break up and provide new approaches to how players progress, and not get them too familiar to the bosses that'll spawn or the areas of the map, so like it becomes very much just rinse and repeating the same thing. I'm wondering how they do spruce up and diversify this game over the intended duration that this game is supposed to be. There are 4 classes that we got to see in the network test, and there's still 4 more that are supposed to be in the final game that we get to see, and I can't help but wonder like where this game will go, how it will evolve, the overall experience. I mean, with 8 classes, I'm wondering how many expeditions there will be and how they are uniquely separate from each other. One other area that I'm wondering about with Nightreign is how it will pan out long term. Will this game be similar to the likes of Monster Hunter, that it will release with a list of different expeditions and bosses you face, and then some title updates arrive and some major expansions that will eventually come out and close out the overall Nightreign experience, having new bosses like a year from now and things like that, and then be like, all right, cool, on to Nightreign 2 or something? Or will this be more in line with something like a live service, being something that's very long standard, regularly updated, that mirrors that approach with classes, maps, and expeditions that release on a regular basis? These are all just speculations and curiosity, but they're things that I wonder about the game, because I have to wonder where this game evolves, how it evolves, and where it goes in the future, and what we're gonna see. But it has me curious, and I lean more on the optimistic side, especially with it being FromSoft, that this game I think does have legs to go far, and I do think there is a really good foundational formula here for what they're doing with this 3 days to explore the world and then you get to fight a final boss kind of thing. That structure works very well, and it feels like an amalgamation and a melding pot of a lot of good ideas that have come together really right, could create a lightning in the bottle moment where we are all singing their praise and saying From's done it again. It definitely is the one that has strayed the most from the path, I would say, and feels a lot different from what I think a lot of people who love this genre love it for. But I mean, I think it can really work out. There's so many little things in this game that are different and more suited to this type of experience. Like there's an absence of fall damage, which I failed to mention earlier, and there's a jump as well, like that you can just jump up on items. You have this it feels a lot more flexible and a lot more allowing for characters to have that agile movement and being able to get around and explore this world, and it's wanting to let you loose. It's understanding of the fact that it's based on a timer, and it's really working within a different confine where it's like a very different experience, but still has remnants and ideas of that at its core being a Souls-like experience. So all this, I'm getting a little waffly now, so I'm going to wrap this up, but I think that there is something really great here, and I think that time will tell how good this will be, but I think this could be a big hit from FromSoft if they find ways to continue to diversify the key and core formula that we saw in this one bite-sized expedition here. And I'm sure, given them and their craft, there is definitely more on the way, and I'm hopeful that that is the case. Now to close out my thoughts and impressions. Overall, I enjoyed my time with Nightreign, and the time that I got to see and what I got exposed to was really fun. There is an interesting formula here that I feel can ultimately go either way depending on how much variety and changes to maps, weapons, boss encounters, and all the different elements that make up this experience there are that really prevent players from getting too familiar and then it just kind of running its course. That's my biggest fear, my biggest concern. But if there is a good variety and that is tended to, and that is like there is a plethora of different weapons, boss variety, changes to the map, different maps even, or different ways that this map changes, alternates from different expeditions, then I think we really are in for something special here. I think it's interesting to see FromSoft lean so heavily into the realm of multiplayer and fundamentally alter many of the pillars that they have built up with this Souls-like subgenre and have it turn into an amalgamation of different staple mechanics from industry juggernaut genres such as roguelikes and battle royales, and coupling these ideas into one unique melding pot that ultimately makes for an experience that is different and eventually becomes more and more addictive, where I wanted to go and clear another run with a different character and a different class just to get used to it and explore more of the map. Whether or not this experience has the staying power to last beyond that 5-hour mark remains to be seen, but overall, Elden Ring Nightreign is a game that I would say you should be putting on your radar, checking out, and at least checking in up till its release, because it has a lot of potential. And if they land this, I do think that this could be another lightning in the bottle, potential game of the year type of game if they stick the landing and really pull this one off. Because the impressions left me really keen to jump back into this world and explore more of what it has to offer. But those are just my thoughts and impressions. A lot can change with the final release, and do bear in mind that a lot can change. I mean, we are about a few months out. With May 30th, I don't think that the game will fundamentally alter, but I do think that the final product could show a different type of experience as to what this is. But given with From Software, I'm going to take their trust on this one and I'm going to look at it and see what it is. And I think if they expand on this formula and they keep doing more with this, we're in for a good time. But as always, thank you for tuning in and watching the video, and if you made it this far, I really appreciate it. And yeah, thanks for watching. I've got a few more videos coming out soon that are in the works, and there has been a delay and absence in a few videos recently, and I've got a few lined up that I'm going to share with you soon that I've really been working on. So thanks for your time today, have a good one as always, and I'll see you in the next video.